The envelope in my hands felt impossibly heavy. Inside was a check that would change my daughter's life forever, and mine too. Tears welled in my eyes as I remembered that rainy night when I found my boss slumped against the wall outside the office party. I had no idea that giving her a simple ride home would lead to this moment. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness return to you in ways you could never imagine. If you're touched by this story already, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more life-changing moments that remind us how unexpectedly beautiful life can be, even in our darkest hours. My name is Daniel Carter. 3 years ago, I was drowning, not in water, but in responsibilities. My wife Melissa had passed away when our daughter Emma was just 4 years old, leaving me to navigate the choppy waters of single parenthood while working full-time as a marketing coordinator at Vertex Solutions. Emma was now 7, with her mother's curious eyes and mischievous smile, but none of her mother's presence to guide her through childhood's precious moments. Every morning was a carefully choreographed dance: wake up at 5:30 a.m., prepare Emma's lunch, make breakfast, help her get ready for school, drop her off at my neighbor Mrs. Patterson's house so she could walk Emma to school, then rush to work where I would inevitably arrive 5 minutes late, earning disapproving glances from my new boss, Katherine Reynolds. Katherine had taken over our department 6 months earlier. Tall, impeccably dressed, with sharp features and an even sharper tongue, she quickly developed a reputation for being demanding and unapproachable. Unlike our previous manager who understood my situation, Katherine seemed to view my family responsibilities as an inconvenience to the company. "The business world doesn't operate around your personal schedule, Mr. Carter," she once told me after I requested to leave early for Emma's school play. The tension between us grew with each late arrival and early departure. My colleagues warned me that I was on thin ice, but finding another job with the flexibility I desperately needed seemed impossible. So I stayed, walking the tightrope between being there for Emma and keeping the job that put food on our table. December brought the annual holiday party at Vertex Solutions. Mrs. Patterson agreed to watch Emma for the night, a kindness I could barely afford to compensate her for anymore. Office attendance was mandatory, but I planned to make an appearance and slip out early. The venue was an upscale restaurant downtown, decorated with twinkling lights and evergreen garlands. I mingled awkwardly, checking my watch every few minutes. At 9:30 p.m., I decided it was time to leave. As I headed toward the exit, I noticed Katherine by the bar, uncharacteristically disheveled, downing what appeared to be her 4th or 5th martini. "Leaving so soon, Carter," she slurred slightly, noticing my escape attempt. "The night's just getting started." "I need to relieve my babysitter," I explained cautiously. "She has an early morning tomorrow." Katherine waved dismissively. Always the responsible parent. How very admirable. There was something in her tone I couldn't quite place. Bitterness? Envy? She turned back to the bartender. "Another, please." The bartender caught my eye and subtly shook his head. "I think you've had enough for tonight, ma'am," he said diplomatically. Katherine's face flushed with indignation. "I'll decide when I've had enough," she snapped, but the bartender had already moved away to serve another guest. I should have left. Every instinct told me to walk away, but something made me hesitate. Maybe it was the sudden vulnerability I glimpsed beneath her polished exterior, or maybe it was simply human decency. "Katherine," I said carefully, "can I call you a cab?" She turned to me, her carefully applied makeup now slightly smudged around her eyes. "I'm perfectly capable of getting myself home, thank you very much." But when she stood up, she swayed dangerously, clutching the bar for support. Making a split-second decision I feared I might regret, I steadied her with my arm. "Let me drive you home," I offered. "It's on my way." It wasn't, but that seemed irrelevant now. After a moment of stubborn resistance, she relented. The rain had started coming down hard as I guided her to my modest sedan in the parking lot. She raised an eyebrow at the booster seat and scattered toys in the back. "Sorry about the mess," I mumbled, hastily clearing away a stuffed unicorn from the passenger seat. The drive to her address, an upscale apartment building downtown, was mostly silent except for her occasional directions. The awkwardness hung thick between us. This was my boss, the woman who had made my professional life increasingly difficult, slumped against my passenger window, vulnerable and exposed in a way I never expected to witness. "Why are you being nice to me?" she finally asked, her voice small against the rhythmic sweep of the windshield wipers. I shrugged. Seemed like the right thing to do. She laughed bitterly. "Even after how I've treated you? All those times I've given you grief about your schedule?" I kept my eyes on the road. "Everyone deserves kindness, Katherine." When we arrived at her building, the rain had intensified into a downpour. I pulled up as close as possible to the entrance and offered to walk her to her door with my umbrella, but she declined. "I'm not that incapacitated," she insisted, though her unsteady hand struggling with the seatbelt suggested otherwise. Just as she was about to get out, she turned to me. In the harsh glow of the streetlights, I noticed something I hadn't before, the profound sadness in her eyes. "Thank you, Daniel," she said, using my first name for perhaps the first time ever. "Not everyone would have done this." "It's nothing," I assured her. "Get some rest. Drink some water." She nodded and stepped out into the rain, hurrying toward the building entrance without looking back. The next Monday at work, I braced myself for awkwardness, or perhaps for Katherine to compensate for her vulnerability by being even more demanding. But instead, she barely acknowledged the incident, maintaining her usual professional demeanor. If anything, she seemed more distant than before. Weeks passed, and life continued its relentless rhythm. Emma caught the flu right before a critical project deadline, forcing me to work remotely for 3 days. I expected repercussions, but Katherine simply asked for daily progress reports and left me alone. I wasn't sure what to make of this subtle shift. It was a Tuesday in January when everything changed. Katherine called me into her office, her expression unreadable. "Close the door, please," she said, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. My stomach dropped. This was it, I was finally being let go. How would I support Emma? How would I pay for our apartment, her school supplies, the medical bills still lingering from Melissa's illness? "Daniel," Katherine began, folding her hands on her desk. "I've been observing your performance over the past few months." I nodded silently, preparing myself for the blow. "Despite your challenging circumstances, your work has been consistently excellent. You've managed to balance your responsibilities here while raising a child on your own, which is—" She hesitated, seeming to search for the right words. "Remarkable." This wasn't at all what I expected. "Thank you," I managed to say. "The company is creating a new position, Senior Marketing Strategist. It comes with a substantial salary increase, better benefits, and more importantly, flexible working hours and the option to work from home 2 days a week." I stared at her, uncomprehending. "I'd like to recommend you for the position," she continued. "You'd be reporting directly to me, but with much more autonomy over your schedule." My mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. I don't understand," I finally stammered. "Why me?" Katherine's professional facade cracked slightly. "Because you deserve it. Because you've proven you can deliver excellent results despite having more on your plate than most. But all the times you've criticized my schedule, my late arrivals. I pushed you because I saw your potential," she interrupted. "And perhaps—" She paused, a flash of something personal crossing her face. "Perhaps I was unfair in my approach." I was speechless. The promotion would change everything for Emma and me. The salary increase alone would ease our financial strain, but the flexible schedule was beyond valuable. It was time with my daughter I could never get back. "Think about it," Katherine said, misinterpreting my silence as hesitation. "The position won't be officially announced until next week." "I don't need to think about it," I said quickly. "I accept." "Thank you, Katherine. This means, Everything. She nodded, her usual composure returning. Good. HR will be in touch with the details. She turned to her computer, a clear dismissal. I stood to leave, still stunned by this unexpected turn of events. At the door, curiosity got the better of me. Katherine, I ventured, can I ask why now? She looked up, her expression carefully neutral. Your performance merits recognition. That's all. But I sensed there was more, something she wasn't saying. I decided not to push and thanked her again before leaving. That evening, as Emma and I built a fort in our living room and read stories by flashlight, I couldn't help but wonder about the timing of this promotion. Was it possible that my small act of kindness the night of the holiday party had somehow influenced Katherine's decision? It seemed unlikely. She was nothing if not professional, and mixing personal feelings with business decisions didn't seem her style. 2 days later, Katherine asked me to stay after a department meeting. Once everyone had filed out, she closed the door and sat not at the head of the table but adjacent to me, a subtle shift in our power dynamic. There's something I need to tell you, Daniel, she began, her voice lacking its usual assertiveness. Something personal that I believe you should know, given your new role. I nodded, unsure where this was heading. The night you drove me home, she continued, wasn't just a case of having too much to drink at a company party. She took a deep breath. That day marked 5 years since my daughter died. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. Katherine, I had no idea. No one here does, she said simply. Leukemia. She was 8. My heart constricted thinking of Emma, imagining the unimaginable loss Katherine had endured. I'm so sorry. She nodded, acknowledging my sympathy without dwelling on it. After it happened, I threw myself into my work. Moved cities. Reinvented myself as someone driven solely by professional achievement. It was easier than facing the emptiness. The pieces started falling into place, her rigid demeanor, her apparent lack of empathy for my situation, perhaps even her initial resentment toward my role as a parent. Seeing you struggle to balance work and raising your daughter alone, it stirred things in me I'd rather keep buried, she admitted. Part of me respected your dedication to her, and part of me. She paused, part of me resented the reminder of what I'd lost. I understand, I said softly, though how could anyone truly understand such grief unless they'd lived it? That night, watching you rush home to your babysitter, to your daughter, it broke something open in me. I drank too much, trying to numb the annual pain. And then you showed me kindness I didn't deserve. Everyone deserves kindness, I repeated my words from that night. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. The next morning, hungover and embarrassed, I looked into your file. I saw your performance reviews, your potential. But I also saw the note about your wife's passing. And I realized I'd been punishing you, unconsciously perhaps, for having what I'd lost, a child to go home to. Her honesty was both painful and precious. The promotion isn't charity or guilt, she continued, reading my unspoken concern. You've earned it. But I wanted you to know that, your kindness that night made me see things differently. Made me see you differently. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of her revelation settling between us. What was her name? I asked finally. Your daughter. Sophie, Katherine answered, her voice softening around the name. She would have been 13 this year. Tell me about her, I said gently. And there, in the corporate meeting room with its sterile lighting and bland motivational posters, Katherine Reynolds shared memories of her daughter, Sophie's love of astronomy, her collection of rocks and feathers, her infectious laugh. As she spoke, I glimpsed the mother behind the manager, the grief behind the toughness. That conversation marked the beginning of a profound change in our professional relationship. Katherine remained demanding and exacting in her standards, but there was a new understanding between us. She approved my flexible schedule without question, and occasionally asked about Emma with genuine interest. 2 months into my new position, I was working late one evening, Emma coloring quietly at the small table I'd set up in my office for the days she needed to come with me after school. Katherine stopped by my door, pausing when she noticed Emma. "Is that your daughter?" she asked, her voice carefully controlled. I nodded. "Emma, this is Ms. Reynolds, my boss." Emma looked up, offering a gap-toothed smile. "Hello. I'm drawing a dinosaur spaceship." Katherine's composure wavered slightly. "That sounds fascinating. May I see?" To my surprise, Katherine pulled up a chair beside Emma, asking detailed questions about the dinosaur astronauts and their mission to Mars. Emma, usually shy with strangers, warmed quickly to Katherine's genuine interest. Before leaving, Katherine hesitated at my door. "She's wonderful, Daniel," she said quietly. "You're doing an amazing job." Coming from her, those simple words carried immense weight. Over the following year, our lives transformed gradually. My new position allowed me to be more present for Emma while advancing my career. Katherine and I developed a productive professional partnership based on mutual respect, occasionally punctuated by personal moments of connection. It was during this time that Katherine approached me about a special project, creating a foundation in Sophie's memory that would support families of children with cancer, particularly single parents struggling with medical bills and childcare during treatment. She wanted me to help develop the marketing strategy. "This isn't part of your official duties," she clarified. "You can decline." But I didn't. Working on the Sophie Elizabeth Reynolds Foundation became a labor of love outside my regular responsibilities. Katherine and I spent countless evenings developing the mission, designing the website, creating fundraising strategies. Through this shared purpose, a friendship slowly blossomed, tentative at first, then growing stronger through our common experiences of loss and parenthood, albeit from very different perspectives. The foundation launched on what would have been Sophie's 14th birthday, with a gala that raised over $200,000 for its first year of operations. Standing beside Katherine as she addressed the crowd, I felt immensely proud of her courage in transforming her grief into purpose. "Sophie taught me that love never diminishes," Katherine told the audience, her voice steady despite the emotion behind her words. "It simply finds new expressions." Later that evening, as the event wound down, Katherine handed me an envelope. "What's this?" I asked, confused. "Open it when you get home," she said simply before being pulled away by other guests. That night, after tucking an exhausted Emma into bed, I sat at our kitchen table and opened the envelope. Inside was a check made out to Emma Carter Educational Fund for $50,000, along with a note in Katherine's precise handwriting. "Daniel. This isn't charity or pity, so please don't take it as such. Consider it an investment in Emma's future from someone who understands the value of a parent's dreams for their child. Sophie would have wanted her memory to help another little girl reach for the stars. With gratitude for your kindness that rainy night. Katherine." The envelope in my hands felt impossibly heavy. Inside was a check that would change my daughter's life forever, and mine too. Tears welled in my eyes as I remembered that rainy night when I found my boss slumped against the wall outside the office party. I had no idea that giving her a simple ride home would lead to this moment. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness return to you in ways you could never imagine. Today, Emma is 10 years old and thriving. The educational fund Katherine established has grown through additional contributions and investments, ensuring Emma's college education will be secure. Katherine has become something I never expected, a friend, a mentor, and in some ways, a part of our family. She joins us for dinner once a month, brings Emma astronomy books that remind her of Sophie, and has taught me that healing comes in many forms. The foundation now supports dozens of families each year, providing financial assistance, childcare solutions, and emotional support. Katherine has transformed her corporate efficiency into compassionate action, leading with the heart she once tried so hard to protect. As for me, I've learned that life rarely follows the path we expect. The night I gave my seemingly cold, drunk boss a ride home, I was simply doing what felt right in the moment. I never anticipated that this small gesture would create ripples that would eventually return to me as waves of unexpected blessing. Perhaps that's the truest lesson in all of this: kindness isn't transactional. We don't offer it expecting anything in return. We offer it because it's what makes us human, what connects us to each other in our brokenness and our hope. And sometimes, when we least expect it, that kindness finds its way back to us, transformed by the journey and bearing gifts we never imagined possible. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us share more stories of unexpected kindness and the beautiful ways our lives intertwine. Remember, the smallest act of compassion might be the beginning of someone else's healing, or your own. Until next time, be kind to one another. You never know how far those ripples might reach.